Okay, I kind of wanted to put this video out today. I don't really have any documentation with me or any articles to talk about or anything from the Bible. This is kind of a, I guess, I will talk about some history, but it's kind of something personal to me. You know how everybody has their own favorite movie or favorite part of history that they're really into. Well, before I started getting into studying all these religions and history and symbols and the Bible and all this other stuff, I was really fascinated with Vlad the Impaler. It didn't start out that way, but I was fascinated with Dracula. And one of my favorite movies is Bram Stoker's Dracula, the one with Gary Oldman in it. I was really so fascinated with it that I wanted to actually write a book about it, which I wrote a couple chapters and lost it off my computer, and then it just kind of ended from there. But I did do a lot of research of the history of it and who he was as a man, and a lot of people who hear the name Vlad the Impaler, they automatically think, oh man, he was just an evil person, you know, he drank the blood of his enemies, he did this and he did that. Well, I didn't, you know, I did a little bit more research to it, and I found out a lot of things that any man that would go through the experiences that he had went through, I want you to imagine, okay, here in the modern times, you have a person, whether it be man or woman, and they live in a kingdom. They live in between two kingdoms. They're royal and everything. They're in control of their country. But they live between two rival countries. And they have to appease each country in order to keep from having their country attacked. So they have to give a little bit of what they have, whether it be land, money, or they do something for this country, or they do something for this country. And they've been taken away, or they have said, say the king said, okay, well, I will give up my children in service to you, so that way I can keep my country safe. Well, that's what happened to Vlad the Impaler. Him and his brother, his father, gave him up to the Sultan. Kind of like the people that we're fighting right now, but it was back then. He gave up his sons to the Sultan. Okay? And say they were like, I guess he was like 8 years old. His brother was younger, so he was like 8 and Vlad was 10. On a daily basis, Vlad resisted the Sultan. He would not do what the Sultan asked him to do. He would not be in service to the Sultan because he's seen the Sultan as his enemy. So daily basis, he was tortured in a torture chamber, beaten. All you can imagine of, you know how the minds of these people are, right? Imagine having 5 to 10 years of that happen to you on a daily basis. Well, his brother did what the Sultan said, followed the Sultan. And finally, after 10 years, 7 to 10 years, he was released. Okay? So he had a lot of anger. He was abused, went through several years of this. He was pissed. He goes back to his country, finds out that the nobles of Washalia buried his father alive. So he then marries to one of his father's, I guess, what do they call that? I'm trying to remember what they call that. The ones that if you need help, they come in and help you. Other countries, whatever. So he marries her, has a baby, decides, oh, you know, I'm going to have all these nobles over and we're going to have a feast because my son is going to be born. The night that his son was born, his wife was literally having his son. He slaughtered every single one of the nobles because they betrayed the country and they betrayed the kingdom and buried his father alive, and he found out about it. Now imagine the kind of mindset that you would have if you were abused from the time you were 10 into your 20s, and you come home and you find out the own nobles of your country killed your father and buried him alive. You'd be pretty pissed. So he goes crazy and kills them all the night of his son's birth. Finally he decides, no more negotiations. I'm not negotiating with anybody. This is my kingdom, this is my country, and I'm going to fight for it. The Sultan sends his brother, Vlad's brother, to him to try to make negotiations. He doesn't want to negotiate. They come in wearing their turbans and everything, and he nails the turbans to the top of their heads and say, don't you ever come into my country, into my kingdom, with that on your head again. Nails them to their head. I said, and then they're still alive. And he says, you send this back to the Sultan, and he'll know how I feel. Sultan comes in his boat. He's got people that come in before him, all his soldiers and everything. Well, Vlad and the countrymen came together and impaled over 50,000 of them. When the Sultan showed up in his ship and saw all his people impaled, scared the shit out of him. He got back in his boat, left his men, and went home because he was so scared. You bet you're wondering why I'm telling you this story. I'm telling you this story because you see the barbarity of ISIS. You see the barbarity of Al-Qaeda. You see what they're doing to Christians. Vlad, from the history, I'm not so sure, was an Orthodox Christian. You see what they've done to us. You've seen what they've done to journalists. You've seen what they've done to Christians and babies. The barbarity of it. Okay? You have to be more barbaric than they are. They don't understand anything but force. There is no negotiating with these people. Like I said before, we have been fighting them since this all began. Look into the history and stuff. I have a dire hatred for these people. I have a tattoo on the back of my neck with Vlad the Impaler's seal on the back with the dragons and everything. I got that tattoo because if it happens and I go out, I want them to be not overjoyed when they try to take my head. I want them to remember that it doesn't matter how barbaric they are, it doesn't matter how many people they kill, they're going to lose in the end. They're not going to be happy if they try to take my head. That's why I got it. I know you can't see it. I can post a picture of it, but anyway, because I understand the history of it. But I'm going to end this video now. Hopefully I didn't go over my time and I can post this on Facebook. There's a lot of history behind all this. It's, there's certain areas of history, but that's one of the ones I really delved into and studied. But I just want to put this out today. Leave your comments. See you in the next video.